At 3:15 yesterday afternoon, a passerby discovered human remains, and specifically a skull that was on the side of the road near the entrance to the Avalon subdivision at Road of the Round Table, which is off of McEwen Drive in Franklin. Officers responded and were concerned that the skull was indeed that of a human, and so forensic experts from the medical examiner's office were called in, and they were actually able to confirm that the skull was that of a human being. We conducted a preliminary search around that area yesterday prior to dark and did not locate any additional evidence. With the help of today's daylight, however, and additional search teams, we were able to discover several other pieces of human remains, all of them skeletal remains, giving us some indication that this person has been at that location for an undetermined amount of time, but certainly not extremely recently. With the help of the medical examiner's office and a forensic anthropologist from MTSU, they're kind of leading our team in the search this afternoon. Under the daylight conditions that we have right now, we've been able to discover, more of the remains, and we've also discovered additional evidence out in this immediate area. This area is one that is obviously evolving with construction. It leaves it kind of difficult for us to know for certain at this point without some forensic science to let us know how long those remains have actually been there. At this point, we have more questions than answers, but we have a huge team of professionals that are out here working to get answers to those questions. It's our job to find out who that person is and how they came to be where they are right now.
Can you speak more specifically about the additional evidence that you guys found besides possibly skeletal remains?
Because it's an ongoing and evolving investigation, I would really prefer not to, but we have found physical evidence that we do believe is going to assist us in the investigation. Our first priority is obviously to identify the person who was found. While we do that, it's very important for us to preserve the scene that's here, because this is an ongoing investigation that's being treated as a criminal investigation until we find out otherwise. This is not a Civil War type, a lot of these bodies that are found, a lot of these skeletal remains that are found, we quickly determine were part of, Franklin's rich history with the Civil War. We do not believe that this is the case with these remains, and we're investigating this scene as a crime.
When you say passerby, is this a walker or is it someone in a car?
This was actually a motorist, and how this came to be is that a landscaper who was working in the area discovered this skull and didn't know exactly what to do with it, and so they placed it where it was found by this passerby. When it was reported to us, that's the area that we checked, and then the immediate area around that prior to darkness, and weren't able to find anything additional. Follow-up searches and interviews have led us a little further out into the search scene, where we've been able to locate additional remains and evidence in this case.
So you're saying a landscaper found the skull, picked it up, and put it on the side of the road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is what. I'm sorry?
You didn't tell anyone?
No, not immediately. And this landscaper and the people that were with them have been cooperative since then. But you can imagine the fear and the uncertainty, or even not even knowing if it's real or not. And so, he placed this where it would be found, and it was. And because of that, we were able to make this discovery that has been at this location for an unknown amount of time.
How long after he discovered the skull did he report it to the authorities or someone there?
The passerby found this skull on the side of the road at the entrance to the subdivision at 3:15 yesterday afternoon. We immediately had officers come out and were able to determine that it was indeed human remains, and worked with the forensic medical examiners to get to the point that we are today.
How many police do you have out there?
I would venture to say that we have about 30 police officers and some support staff from Williamson County Emergency Management, the medical examiner's office, and the MTSU anthropologist.
Are there any open missing persons cases that could be linked to this?
We don't know of any open missing persons cases here in Franklin or generally Williamson County that could be linked to this. However, We are definitely looking as part of our investigation into surrounding jurisdictions, both within and outside of the state. The remains of this person, someone knows who they are, and they're going to be able to help us with that. And so we're searching these missing person files. We're working with other agencies. We want to resolve the identity of this person as quickly as possible while preserving the crime scene, so we can find out exactly what happened to them.
How big is the search area?
I don't know exactly how big the search area is. I can say that the remains were all found within a relatively small area. This is not a very wide, broad area that the remains were scattered throughout.
Is it an undeveloped area where the skull was found?
It is. It's an undeveloped area. It's a very brushy area. As some of you saw when you were over there, the area is thick and covered with brush, which makes things a little bit more difficult. We hope that with the help of the daylight hours that are remaining, we'll be able to establish all of the rest of the things that we need to do before it does get dark tonight.
I know you don't want to go into too many details, but what makes the police department think that this is more recent than, say, Civil War?
Again, without getting into too many specifics because of the ongoing investigation, this is something that's evolved quite heavily from the time that the skull was found until now. And so this is a very evolving, fluid situation. We have found items, though, along with the skeletal remains of a modern era. So we're confident that this is not what we have encountered before, which is, Civil War era remains that were found during construction excavation. There was no excavation going on in this area. This is truly something that the remains were found, on top of the ground. They weren't dug up by an excavator.
Any idea of a gender or approximate age?
We're working on those things still.
Do you guys know how long you will continue the search today, or will you guys end at when the sun sets?
We're really going to rely on the detectives that are working this case, along with the experts from the medical examiner's office and the anthropologists that are here to determine how much more we can do after the sun goes down. There's some weather that may be coming in. There's a lot of things at play, and so we're going to rely on those experts to tell us how long we continue this today, if we're not able to conclude the entire scene investigation before it starts to rain or get dark.
Was the skull intact?
Yes, it was intact.
And where are the remains now? Are they still down there? Have they been sent off to a crime lab or anything like that?
Joseph, that's a tough question. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Is there any sense of whether, again, not to get too much into specifics, but is there any sense of whether that the body might have been out there before this area was developed? Not Civil War era, but...
We're going to rely on forensic science to really tell us how long the remains may have been there. And the other evidence that was found in that area, there are a ton of theories that could be explored or talked about, and that really wouldn't do the case any justice, or the person who was found any justice.
And how long does it usually take? You take the remains to a lab, and you probably do some dental records and maybe other carbon dating stuff. How long does that usually take before you get a good idea?
That's really something I'd have to rely on the anthropologist and the medical examiner's office to answer.
Was the driver who spotted the skull from the side of the road, were they a resident, or is there anything you can tell us about him or her?
I don't know the answer to that question, actually. I know that it was a motorist that was going into the subdivision through that gate.
Is that a gated community?
Part of it is gated.
And for people living there, will they have to find another way into their neighborhood tonight?
That-
I see that road is kind of blocked up.
Really, the inconvenience as far as people getting in or out is more with construction crews. That's a construction entrance and is used probably by very few residents. There is another entrance, however, into the subdivision that people that do live there or people that need to do work there would be able to access the subdivision through. Obviously, to preserve the scene, and we're out there with 30, 35 people trying to work and get to the bottom of exactly what happened. We can't have cars passing through there, so we've just had to close it down for now.
Do you know the name of the subdivision?
It's the Avalon subdivision.
The time frame of when the landscaper found it, moved it, and put it by the highway, how long had that?
It all happened very rapidly. There was no real downtime between the discovery and the report.